She called it cute, like I was pitching a school project. 3 months later, she was begging for a license to use it. I still remember the way she tilted her head, that condescending smile playing on her lips as she dismissed my months of work in front of the entire team. The conference room fell silent, everyone waiting to see if I'd defend myself. I didn't. I just nodded, gathered my notes, and sat back down. That was the moment I decided to build it anyway. My name is Madeline Russo, Maddie to everyone except my mother and apparently Cynthia Blake, who insisted on using my full name like I was a child being scolded. At 34, I'd spent 6 years as a product designer at Nexovia Health Systems, watching my ideas get buried under bureaucracy and ego. Portland's tech scene was supposed to be different, progressive, collaborative. But sitting in that glass-walled conference room overlooking the Willamette River, I realized corporate politics were universal. Cynthia, our 42-year-old director of product, ruled our department with a peculiar blend of Silicon Valley buzzwords and old-school intimidation. "So, Madeline," she'd said that morning, adjusting her designer glasses, "walk us through this widget of yours." Widget? She'd chosen that word carefully, diminishing my work before I'd even opened my mouth. I stood, clicked to my presentation, and explained my vision. An AI-powered tool that would help doctors streamline follow-up scheduling based on patient data and symptom history. It could save physicians hours each week, reduce no-shows, and improve patient outcomes. It integrates seamlessly with existing EMR systems, I explained, showing the mock-ups I'd spent nights perfecting. Initial testing with 3 local clinics showed. "That's your big idea?" Cynthia interrupted, that smile spreading across her face. "Cute. But let's focus on real problems." She turned to address the room, dismissing me entirely. "We need solutions that move the needle, not little helper tools." Little helper tools. Each word landed like a slap. Around the table, my colleagues shifted uncomfortably. Marcus from engineering gave me a sympathetic glance. Sarah from marketing suddenly found her notebook fascinating. Even Tom, who'd encouraged me to present this idea, stayed silent. I stood there for a moment, heat rising to my cheeks. 6 months of research, interviews with dozens of overwhelmed physicians, countless iterations, reduced to cute. "Thank you for the feedback," I managed, my voice steady despite the tremor in my hands. I closed my laptop and returned to my seat. Cynthia had already moved on, pulling up her own presentation about some bloated enterprise solution that would take 2 years and millions to implement. As she spoke, gesturing dramatically about paradigm shifts and synergistic solutions, I stared at my closed laptop. She hadn't even asked about the data. The testimonials from doctors who'd tested the prototype, the projected time savings. None of it mattered because it came from me, quiet Maddie who preferred building to talking, who'd rather solve problems than play politics. That night, I sat in my apartment, replaying the humiliation. But somewhere between my second glass of wine and midnight, anger crystallized into determination. If Nexovia didn't want my little idea, maybe someone else would. I opened my laptop and created a new folder, Curaflow. They'd dismissed me. Soon, they'd be writing checks to me. The idea hadn't come from nowhere. 2 years earlier, I'd watched my mother navigate the healthcare system while battling lupus. Every appointment spawned 3 more, each requiring phone tag with receptionists, paper calendars, and inevitably, something would fall through the cracks. I'd sit in waiting rooms, watching overwhelmed staff juggle calls while doctors rushed between patients, and think, there has to be a better way. That's when the seed was planted. Not some revolutionary platform or disruptive technology, just a simple tool that would do one thing exceptionally well: help doctors schedule follow-ups intelligently, automatically, based on actual patient needs. Over the next 6 months at Nexovia, I refined the concept on my own time. Early mornings before work, lunch breaks, weekends, I interviewed physicians, studied workflow patterns, mapped out the logic. The prototype I built wasn't pretty, but it worked. Dr. Patel at Providence called it life-changing. Dr. Murray said she'd pay for it out of pocket if she had to. Armed with this validation, I'd approached Cynthia multiple times. The first attempt, she'd been too busy with Q3 planning. The second, she'd said it wasn't aligned with our product roadmap. By the third attempt, she'd stopped pretending to consider it seriously. "Madeline, I appreciate your enthusiasm," she'd said, not looking up from her phone. "But we're an enterprise company. We don't do widgets." That word again. Widget. Like I was proposing a desktop toy instead of a solution that could transform how healthcare providers manage their time. The final insult came during Nexovia's Internal Innovation Summit. I'd signed up to present, hoping a public forum might generate support. But when I arrived, my name wasn't on the agenda. "Oh, that," Cynthia had said when I asked. "I consolidated some of the presentations. Don't worry, I incorporated your scheduling insights into my workflow optimization proposal." I sat in the audience, watching in disbelief as she presented a bastardized version of my idea. She'd taken the surface concept, but missed everything that made it work. The AI logic, the integration architecture, the user experience designed around actual physician behavior. Her version was bloated, expensive, and fundamentally wrong. When it predictably failed to gain traction with the executive team, she blamed it on the concept being half-baked and not enterprise-ready. Several colleagues glanced my way, knowing whose idea it had originally been. That night, I started documenting everything. Every email where I'd proposed the idea, every mock-up, every line of code, every interview note. Call it paranoia or intuition. But something told me I'd need proof of ownership someday. My friend Jake, who'd seen similar situations at his last company, warned me. "She's not just dismissing your idea, Maddie. She's making sure it dies here so no one else can have it either." But Jake was wrong about one thing. The idea wasn't dying, it was just going underground. I spent my evenings refining the algorithm, testing it with real datasets I'd anonymized from public health records. My apartment became a makeshift research lab, whiteboards covering the walls, post-its mapping user journeys. My social life dwindled to nothing. But I didn't care. Each small breakthrough, a more elegant solution, a cleaner interface, felt like a tiny rebellion against Cynthia's dismissal. The breaking point came in February. Cynthia excluded me from a major client project, citing my lack of strategic thinking in my performance review. The same review where she'd rated my technical skills as exceptional but my leadership potential as limited. "You're a solid individual contributor, Madeline," she'd said, that practiced smile never wavering. "But some people are meant to build, and others are meant to lead. It's important to know which one you are." I knew exactly which one I was. I was the builder who was about to build my way out of her shadow. That night, I updated my LinkedIn status to "open to opportunities" and started calculating how long my savings could sustain me. 6 months, maybe 8 if I was careful. Enough time to turn my little widget into something Cynthia would have to take seriously, whether she wanted to or not. I began backing up my personal files, careful to take only what was mine. My ideas, my code, my research. Nothing that belonged to Nexovia, no matter how tempting it might be to blur those lines. 3 weeks later, I gave my notice. HR didn't even seem surprised. Cynthia's only comment was, "I hope you find a role better suited to your skill set." Standing in the lobby with my cardboard box of desk plants and personal items, I looked back at the Nexovia logo one last time. Somewhere up on the 7th floor, Cynthia was probably already forgetting I existed. She wouldn't forget for long. Freedom tasted like burnt coffee and sleep deprivation. My first week out of Nexovia, I allowed myself exactly 1 day to wallow. Then I got to work. My studio apartment in Southeast Portland transformed into Curaflow headquarters, population 1. The name came to me during a 3 a.m. coding session. Curaflow. Simple, medical. Suggesting ease and movement. Everything Nexovia's bloated solutions weren't. My first call was to Ryan, my ex-boyfriend who'd remained a friend despite our romantic implosion. He ran a DevOps consultancy and understood both my vision and my need for revenge, though he'd never call it that. "You sure about this, Maddie?" he asked over Vietnamese coffee in our old neighborhood spot. "Starting a company isn't just building a product." "I've got 6 months of runway and a working prototype," I replied. "What I need is infrastructure help and someone who can make this scale." Ryan studied me for a long moment. "You're serious about this?" "Dead serious." He agreed to help with the back-end architecture in exchange for a small equity stake. Through him, I found Andre, a brilliant developer from Romania who worked nights, my days, for half the rate of local talent. Within 2 weeks, we had a distributed team, me on product and business, Ryan on infrastructure, Andre on development, and eventually, Lisa, a UI designer I found through a Women in Tech Slack channel. We worked like people possessed. I'd fall asleep at my desk and wake up to Andre's pull requests from Bucharest. Ryan would drop by with Thai food and server optimization strategies. Lisa turned my functional but ugly interface into something doctors would actually want to use. The MVP took 3 months. 3 months of 16-hour days, of debugging at 4 a.m., of eating cereal for dinner because I'd forgotten to shop. But when Dr. Patel, the same one who'd called my original prototype life-changing, tested our beta version, her response made it all worthwhile. "This is exactly what we need," she said, clicking through the demo. "When can we buy it?" That's when I knew we had something real, not just a widget or a little helper tool, but a genuine solution to a painful problem. I incorporated Curaflow as an LLC, keeping things lean and simple, no investors, no board, no one to tell me my ideas were cute. The pricing model was straightforward. $299 per month for small practices, scaling up based on provider count. No enterprise sales cycles, no implementation consultants, just sign up, integrate, and start saving time. The go-to-market strategy was guerrilla warfare. I haunted medical subreddits, answering questions about workflow optimization and occasionally mentioning our tool. I reached out to every physician I'd interviewed during my research, offering extended free trials. I wrote blog posts about the hidden costs of inefficient scheduling, always backing claims with data. The breakthrough came from an unexpected source. A family medicine resident in Texas posted about Curaflow on Twitter. Finally, someone who understands that doctors just want tools that work, not platforms that require a PhD to operate. The tweet went modestly viral in medical Twitter circles. Within 48 hours, I had 40 trial signups. Lisa designed a simple onboarding flow that got doctors from sign-up to first scheduled follow-up in under 10 minutes. Andre built an integration system that played nicely with the major EMR systems. Ryan ensured our servers could handle the growing load. By month 5, we had our first paying customers. Dr. Chen, no relation to anyone at Nexovia, became our champion, writing a glowing review in a medical technology newsletter. Word spread through physician networks faster than any marketing campaign could have achieved. I remember the night we hit 20 paying customers. Ryan brought champagne to my apartment, where we toasted among the whiteboards and empty coffee cups. "You know what the best part is?" I said, slightly tipsy on both champagne and success. "We built exactly what I pitched to Cynthia. No changes, no compromises, no enterprise bloat, just the little widget she dismissed. The widget that's generating almost $6,000 in monthly recurring revenue," Ryan added with a grin. But the real satisfaction came from the user feedback. Doctors sending grateful emails about having dinner with their families instead of staying late to handle scheduling. Office managers reporting 30% fewer no-shows. One pediatrician in Ohio said Curaflow had given her back her Sundays. As we approached the 6-month mark, I faced a crossroads. My savings were nearly depleted, but Curaflow was on the verge of profitability. A few investment firms had reached out, intrigued by our growth metrics. Part of me was tempted. Their money could accelerate everything. But then I'd remember Cynthia's condescending smile, the way she'd dismiss not just my idea, but my capability. I'd built this without her, without Nexovia, Without anyone's permission or approval, I decided to bootstrap a little longer, just until we hit a certain milestone I'd set for myself. The same week I made that decision, an email landed in my business inbox that made me laugh out loud. The sender? Nexovia Health Systems. The subject line? Licensing inquiry, urgent. Game on. The email sat in my inbox like an unexploded bomb. I read it 3 times, each pass revealing new layers of corporate desperation barely concealed by professional language. Dear CuraFlow team, Nexovia Health Systems is exploring partnerships with innovative scheduling solutions. Your product has come to our attention through several of our hospital partners who have requested integration capabilities. We would like to discuss licensing opportunities at your earliest convenience. This is a time-sensitive matter. Best regards, Cynthia Blake, Director of Product, Nexovia Health Systems. I leaned back in my desk chair, the same IKEA one I'd assembled on my first day of unemployment. Around me, my apartment still looked like a startup war zone. Whiteboards covered in flowcharts, monitors displaying real-time usage dashboards, empty protein bar wrappers testament to too many skipped meals. But now those dashboards showed 23 active subscriptions, 6,870 in monthly recurring revenue, and climbing. Ryan happened to be over, fixing a server issue. I showed him the email. Holy shit, he said. She has no idea it's you. CuraFlow's website doesn't have my photo, I replied. Just says founded by healthcare technology professionals. I wanted the product to speak for itself. What are you going to do? I smiled. Exactly what any professional would do. I'm going to take the meeting. Over the next few days, I prepared meticulously. I incorporated CuraFlow as a proper C Corp, opening the door for the kind of licensing deal Nexovia would expect. I had Lisa design a professional pitch deck that screamed legitimacy. I even bought my first real business suit since leaving Nexovia, charcoal gray, perfectly tailored, the kind of armor you wear when you're about to face your past. The email exchange with Cynthia was cordial, professional, and revealed everything I needed to know. Nexovia had lost a major hospital contract bid because they couldn't provide efficient follow-up scheduling. The client specifically mentioned seeing CuraFlow at another facility. Now they were scrambling. We scheduled a Zoom call for the following Tuesday. I spent the weekend practicing my pitch. Not because I needed to, I could explain CuraFlow in my sleep, but because I wanted to savor every moment of what was coming. Tuesday arrived gray and drizzly. Perfect Portland weather for perfect Portland revenge. I set up my laptop in the corner of my apartment with the best lighting, my certificates and awards strategically visible in the background. At 2 p.m. sharp, I clicked Join Meeting. Cynthia appeared first, followed by 2 executives I didn't recognize. She looked exactly the same, pristine blazer, severe bun, that practiced corporate smile. Thank you for taking this meeting, she began. As I mentioned, we're very interested in... I unmuted and turned on my camera. Hello, Cynthia. The transformation in her face was worth every sleepless night, every skipped meal, every moment of doubt. Her smile froze, melted, reformed into something between shock and forced professionalism. Madeline, her voice cracked slightly. I didn't realize... The founder. It's Maddie, actually, I said pleasantly. And yes, I'm the founder and CEO of CuraFlow. How can I help Nexovia today? The executives glanced between us, clearly sensing history but unaware of the details. Cynthia recovered quickly. I had to give her credit for that. Well, this is unexpected. But professional is professional. We're interested in integrating CuraFlow into our enterprise platform. I nodded, launching into my presentation as if we were strangers. I walked them through our features, our architecture, our impressive adoption rates. I mentioned our white label options, our API capabilities, our security certifications. What I didn't mention was how every line of code, every feature, every design decision was exactly what I'd proposed in that conference room 8 months ago. The standard enterprise license starts at $5,000 per month, I said, watching Cynthia's eye twitch. But given Nexovia's specific needs and the urgency you mentioned, we'd need to create a custom package. One of the executives, Roberts, according to his Zoom name, leaned forward. What would that look like? I pulled up my pricing slide, the one I'd created specifically for this moment. For Nexovia's requirements, full API access, white label branding, priority support, and integration assistance, we're looking at $9,000 per month. Billed quarterly in advance. Cynthia started to speak, probably to negotiate, but Roberts cut her off. That seems reasonable for the feature set. How quickly can we implement? As soon as the contract is signed and the first payment clears, I replied smoothly, we can have you integrated within 2 weeks. The rest of the call was logistics. Cynthia said barely 10 words, her jaw tight, her fingers drumming silently off camera. When we ended the call, I sat in my apartment's sudden silence, then let out a laugh that was part relief, part triumph, part disbelief. Ryan texted immediately. How did it go? I texted back $9,000 a month, quarterly in advance. My phone rang instantly. You're kidding me. I'm not. They need us, Ryan. They need my little widget. That night, I didn't celebrate. Not yet. I just sat with my laptop, looking at Curaflow's dashboard, our growing user base, our revenue projections, our customer testimonials. Everything Cynthia had said I wasn't capable of building. The contract would come. The money would flow. But this moment, knowing that I'd built something they needed, something they'd dismissed when it came from me, this was the real victory. The contract arrived within 48 hours. Nexovia was clearly desperate. I forwarded it to my lawyer, a friend from college who'd traded her nonprofit dreams for corporate law but still gave me startup rates. Make sure everything is ironclad, I told her, especially the termination clauses. While legal hammered out details, I prepared for what I knew was coming. The moment Cynthia would have to work directly with me, the universe, it seemed, had a sense of humor. 3 days later, we had our implementation kickoff call. This time, Cynthia came alone, her corporate armor fully deployed. I'd decided to be ruthlessly professional. The best revenge is success. After all, not petty satisfaction. Let's discuss integration timelines, I began, sharing my screen. Your development team will need access to our API documentation. Madeline, she interrupted, can we address the elephant in the room? I paused, cursor hovering over my presentation. What elephant would that be? You know what I mean. This situation. You clearly built this after leaving Nexovia. I built this after you told me Nexovia doesn't do widgets, I said calmly. Turns out, a lot of healthcare providers do want widgets. Simple, effective, affordable widgets. Her lips pursed. You used knowledge gained at Nexovia. I used knowledge gained from talking to doctors on my own time, coding on weekends, and researching problems you weren't interested in solving. My voice remained steady, but I felt my spine straighten. Every line of code, every feature, every design decision was created after I left. I have documentation to prove it. She fell silent. We both knew she had no legal ground. I'd been careful about that. The past is the past, I continued. You need a solution. I have one. That's all this is. But of course, it wasn't. The contract was signed by end of week. The first payment hit Curaflow's account the following Monday, $27,000 for the first quarter. I stared at the number in our business checking account, remembering 6 months ago when I'd calculated whether I could afford both rent and ramen. Implementation began immediately. Nexovia assigned a technical lead named Marcus, the same Marcus who'd given me that sympathetic look in the conference room. He was professional but warm. And during our third call, when Cynthia stepped away, he said quietly, "We all knew it was your idea. For what it's worth, I'm glad you made it happen." But Cynthia wasn't done trying to assert control. She scheduled urgent enhancement requests, demanding features that would require significant development time. Each request came with thinly veiled threats about reevaluating our partnership if we couldn't deliver. That's when I played my card. Per our contract, I said during one particularly tense call. Custom development beyond the agreed scope is billed separately at $200 per hour, 40-hour minimum blocks. That's highway robbery, she snapped, forgetting her professional facade. That's market rate for specialized healthcare technology consulting. Of course, you're free to build these features internally. I paused, letting the impossibility of that sink in. Or find another vendor who provides what Curaflow does. We both knew there wasn't one. Not with our integration speed, our user satisfaction scores, our price point. I'd found the perfect niche and executed it flawlessly. She backed down. The enhancement requests stopped. But the real moment of vindication came a month later. Nexovia won the hospital contract they'd been chasing, largely because Curaflow's scheduling capabilities put them over the edge. The deal was worth millions to them. Robert sent a congratulatory email to me, CCing Cynthia, praising the seamless partnership and innovative solution. I hired my first full-time employee that week, a customer success manager to handle the growing support requests, including the increasingly frequent ones from Cynthia herself, who seemed to need help with features clearly explained in our documentation. Should I handle her tickets personally? My new hire, Jessica, asked after Cynthia's third urgent request of the week. No, I said. Treat her like any other user. Professional, helpful. But through the standard support channels. It was petty. Maybe. But after months of having my ideas dismissed, my capabilities questioned, my potential limited, making Cynthia submit support tickets like anyone else felt like balance being restored to the universe. Curaflow kept growing. By month 8, we had 47 active customers generating over $15,000 in monthly recurring revenue. The Nexovia contract alone justified my entire leap of faith. But it was the other doctors, the ones who sent grateful emails, who recommended us to colleagues, who said we'd transformed their practice, that made it real. I moved out of my studio into a proper apartment with a dedicated office. I hired Andre full-time, sponsored his visa to come to Portland. Lisa joined as head of design. Ryan increased his equity stake and came on as CTO. And every month, like clockwork, Nexovia's payment hit our account, $9,000. Proof that my little widget had value. Proof that Cynthia had been wrong. Proof that sometimes the best revenge isn't destroying your enemies. It's building something they can't live without. Success has a way of compounding. By our first anniversary, Curaflow had grown beyond my wildest projections. 73 active customers, $22,000 in monthly recurring revenue, and a team of 6 full-time employees. We'd moved into a real office in Portland's Pearl District, complete with exposed brick walls and a coffee machine that actually worked. The Nexovia payments had become routine, just another line item in our revenue spreadsheet. But Cynthia's support tickets hadn't decreased. If anything, they'd become more frequent, more demanding, always marked urgent, always expecting immediate response. She's requesting another custom report, Jessica told me one morning, forwarding the latest ticket. Same data she asked for last week, just formatted differently. I glanced at the request. Classic Cynthia, making work for the sake of asserting control. Standard response, I said. Point her to the reporting documentation. If she needs training, she can schedule a session at our hourly rate. Jessica grinned. She'd figured out the dynamic months ago. The real shift came when I started speaking at healthcare technology conferences. My topic, from dismissal to disruption, building solutions. Doctors actually want, resonated with audiences tired of bloated enterprise software. I never mentioned Nexovia by name. But the story of a little widget that became essential infrastructure struck a chord. After a talk in Seattle, a venture capitalist approached me. Curaflow is exactly what healthcare needs, she said. Simple, focused, effective, if you're ever looking for funding to scale. I took her card but knew I wouldn't call. We were profitable, growing sustainably, and most importantly, independent. No board to answer to, no investors to placate, no one to tell me my ideas were cute, The universe seemed determined to test that independence. An email arrived from Roberts at Nexovia. Strategic discussion request. This time, the meeting was in person. I flew to their Portland headquarters, my first time back since walking out with my cardboard box. The building looked the same, all glass and steel ambition. But I felt different walking through those doors. Last time, I'd been an employee seeking approval. Now, I was a vendor they couldn't afford to lose. Roberts met me in the executive conference room, accompanied by Cynthia and the CFO. After pleasantries, he got to the point. We'd like to discuss acquiring Curaflow. I'd prepared for this possibility, but hearing it stated so plainly still sent a jolt through me. I kept my expression neutral. I'm listening. The offer was substantial. 8 figures, earn-out provisions, a VP of product role at Nexovia. You'd be working directly under Cynthia, Roberts added, oblivious to the irony. Running the entire scheduling division. Cynthia's face was a masterpiece of forced enthusiasm. It would be wonderful to have you back on the team. Madeline, your entrepreneurial experience would be valuable. I let the silence stretch, studying the wood grain of the conference table where I'd once been humiliated. Then I looked up, meeting each of their eyes in turn. Thank you for the offer, but Curaflow isn't for sale. Roberts blinked. Perhaps we haven't been clear about the terms. The terms are generous, I interrupted gently. But I'm building something here, something that works because it's independent, focused, and responsive to actual user needs. Folding it into Nexovia would destroy exactly what makes it valuable. Be practical, Cynthia interjected, her mask slipping. You can't compete with enterprise resources forever. What happens when we build our own solution? There it was, the threat wrapped in concern. I smiled, genuinely this time. You tried that, remember? In fact, you presented my idea yourself at the Innovation Summit. How did that work out? Her face flushed. Roberts looked confused. Here's what I propose instead, I continued. A 3-year contract extension at our current terms, with a 5% annual increase, guaranteed exclusivity in the scheduling space. In exchange, Curaflow commits to priority feature development for Nexovia's needs. It was more than fair. It was generous, even, but it kept me in control. Roberts wanted to negotiate. The CFO ran numbers on his laptop. Cynthia sat silent, her jaw working like she was chewing glass. After an hour of back and forth, they agreed to my terms. Walking out of that building, not with a box of discarded dreams, but with a contract worth over $300,000, I felt the last piece of something toxic finally leave my system. Not revenge anymore, just freedom. That night, my team took me to dinner to celebrate. As we toasted with local IPAs, Jessica asked, "Did you ever think it would get this big when you started?" I thought about those first desperate months, coding until dawn, surviving on determination and instant noodles. About Cynthia's dismissive smile and how it had fueled my fire. No, I admitted. I just wanted to prove that my little widget had value. Mission accomplished, Ryan said, raising his glass again. So what's next? I looked around the table at my team, brilliant people who believed in what we were building, who'd never once called my ideas cute or told me to know my place. We keep building, I said. Keep solving real problems. Keep growing on our terms. The next morning, another support ticket from Cynthia appeared in our queue. Jessica handled it with professional efficiency, like any other customer request. Because that's all she was now, a customer who paid us $9,000 a month to use the little widget she'd once dismissed. Some might call it poetic justice. I just called it business. 2 years later, I stood backstage at the Chicago Health Tech Summit, adjusting my microphone and reviewing my slides one last time. Curaflow had grown to 200-plus customers, and I'd been invited to deliver the keynote on Underdog Innovations, How Small Ideas Transform Healthcare. The irony wasn't lost on me. The same conference where Nexovia executives once ignored my booth inquiries now featured me as their main speaker. Success has a way of rewriting history. 5 minutes. Ms. Russo, the stage manager said. I nodded, taking a deep breath. Through the curtain gap, I could see the audience filling the auditorium, hundreds of healthcare professionals, entrepreneurs, and yes, corporate executives looking for the next big thing. Walking onto that stage felt like stepping into another life. The spotlight was warm, the audience expectant. I began with a story they'd heard before, but never from this angle. 3 years ago, a director at a major health tech company called my idea cute. She said it was a little widget, not worth pursuing. Today, that same company pays $9,000 a month to license that widget. Nervous laughter rippled through the crowd. I clicked to my first slide, Curaflow's growth chart. But this isn't a story about revenge. It's about what happens when we stop seeking permission to solve problems. I walked them through our journey, the nights coding alone, the first paying customer, the moment we became profitable. I shared the rejections, the doubts, the times I almost gave up. But mostly, I talked about listening, to doctors, to nurses, to the people actually using the tools we build. Innovation doesn't always look innovative, I said. Sometimes it looks like a simple solution to a daily frustration, something so obvious that established players dismiss it as too small to matter. 20 minutes into my talk, I spotted her. Third row from the back, aisle seat. Cynthia. Arms crossed, expression unreadable. Our eyes met for a fraction of a second. I didn't pause, didn't stumble. She was just another face in the crowd, another person who might learn something today. I moved into the technical portion, showing how small, focused solutions could outperform enterprise platforms. The audience leaned in, taking notes, nodding along. Several hands shot up during the Q&A. How do you handle competition from larger players? One founder asked. By staying focused, they have to be everything to everyone. We just have to be perfect at one thing. What about acquisition offers? Another ventured. I evaluate them against a simple question. Will this help us serve doctors better, or just make us bigger? As the session wrapped up, I delivered my closing thoughts. 3 years ago, someone with power told me to know my place, that some people build and others lead. They were half right. I am a builder. But here's what they missed. Builders can lead too. We lead by creating solutions people actually want, by proving that little ideas can have massive impact, by refusing to let anyone else define our potential. I paused, scanning the audience one last time. If they call your idea little, smile. That just means they can't imagine paying $9,000 a month for it. Yet. The applause was thunderous. People stood, clapping and whistling. I caught glimpses of faces, some inspired, some thoughtful, some perhaps reconsidering ideas they'd dismissed. In the back, Cynthia's seat was empty. Backstage, my phone buzzed with messages, investors, potential customers, conference organizers wanting to book me for their events. But the one that mattered most was from Dr. Patel, my first beta tester. Watched your stream, so proud of how far you've come. P.S. Curaflow saved me 3 hours again this week. Later, at the networking reception, Roberts from Nexovia found me. Excellent presentation, he said. Cynthia had to catch an early flight, but she wanted me to pass along her regards. I smiled. Please tell her I appreciate that. We both knew she hadn't said any such thing. That night, in my hotel room overlooking the Chicago skyline, I opened my laptop to check Curaflow's dashboard. 217 active customers. $71,000 in MRR. 15 employees across 3 time zones. And yes, still that steady $9,000 from Nexovia every month. But the numbers weren't what made me smile. It was the newest support ticket in our queue, submitted an hour ago. Username, C. Blake, Nexovia. Subject: urgent. Custom report needed. Jessica would handle it in the morning. Professionally and efficiently. Just like any other customer request. Because that's what Cynthia was. A customer who'd once had the power to define my worth and now paid monthly for the privilege of using my work. I closed my laptop and poured a glass of wine. toasting silently to every dismissed idea that became essential. Every little widget that changed an industry. Every builder who refused to stay in their assigned place. The best revenge isn't destroying those who doubted you. It's building something so valuable they can't imagine working without it. And then charging them $9,000 a month for the privilege. Thank you so much for listening to this story. I'd love to know where you're tuning in from. Drop a comment below and let's connect. If this tale of sweet career justice resonated with you, please subscribe to the channel and share your own thoughts. Have you ever had an idea dismissed only to prove its worth later? Let me know in the comments.